Hi, guys. I hope if you were in the US that you had an amazing Thanksgiving last week. I certainly did. My son and daughter-in-law and granddaughter live here, and my daughter and her significant other came over from Dallas and spent several days with us. So lots of fun. I'm exhausted from all the going, but full work week this week. So here we go. My name is Lisa Edwards. I am the CEO of The Exclusive Career, and I host these two podcasts. The one you're listening to is The Exclusive Career Coach, which is all things career or job search, I should say, going forward. So, all aspects of the job search. And I'm taking old episodes and bringing them into 2025 and beyond with updated information and as you will see with today's, really reframing the topic completely. My other podcast, The Exclusive Career, is career management, leadership development, all of the things that you need in your toolkit to manage an ascension in your career to the C-suite or wherever you want to go. In the last episode, that was episode 32, the topic was, are you inadvertently demotivating your team? And I talked about the ways that we either, as leaders, either try to motivate our team and in effect do the exact opposite, or we may just make an offhand comment or do something not thinking about it, and it has a demotivating effect, and what to do about all of that. So if that's of interest to you, again, that's episode 32 on the exclusive career. All right, so this is an update of episode 21 where I had a guest, Jen Swanson, and it was called Taking Care of You During a Job Transition. And I want to update this, really drilling down on the mental, physical, social, and spiritual aspects of a job search. And full disclosure, there's going to be value in this content, and I think food for thought for anyone who is thinking of conducting a job search. Maybe you're going to start one in 2026. But a lot of this is really tailored to people who find themselves out of work for some period of time, whether you've been let go or you've chosen to leave the company before having another job. So, again, good for everybody, even better for those of you that are unemployed. And I'm going to be framing this content as kind of the basic information that you hear out there versus the deep dive that I'm going to give you. I think this is a really interesting approach that I've taken. Credit to AI for helping me think about how I wanted to present this information. Um, and the other thing that I want to say about it is one of the things that I hear most consistently about this podcast from you, listeners, is that I do go deeper and I do go below the surface. To me, it is completely useless when I see someone on social media post, what do you need to do a job search? Update your resume. Well, duh. But what does that look like? And so this is really a good example of this. We're going to go below the surface and get really granular about this. I want to offer a ray of hope to you all, especially if you find yourself out of work. Over and over again, clients have told me when we reach out, we talk to each other, say 9 months down the road, they're in their new job, they've been in it for a little while. And it's at that point that they realize that they weren't really happy with their old job, or is they were more unhappy than they thought. Kind of think about it that way. It was more extreme than they thought. And in some cases, they were just comfortable and kind of complacent and bored, but they didn't realize it until they got into a new role that really energized them and enthused them. So let's start by acknowledging that a job search can be a form of an identity crisis. And I think that's especially true for those of you who are high achievers, which is primarily who I work with in my practice and who listens to this podcast. If you find yourself, especially in a job search that is not of your choosing, it can be very, you can lose your identity in this. We're going to be talking about this topic in terms of asset management, and you are the asset. If you think about it that way, if your asset depreciates during your job transition, during your search, your market value is going to drop. If you are not doing the things you need to do to keep your assets at the highest level, keep their value at the highest level. If you are doing things that devalue your assets or not doing the things that would either maintain or increase your asset value, your market value is going to drop. So we're going to be talking about taking care of yourself during a job search as not as self-care, but as performance strategy to keep your market value high. The first one I want to talk about is the mental aspect. And I'm calling this cognitive budgeting, so brain budgeting, and identity preservation, keeping you during this job transition, especially if you are unemployed. The basic advice that you hear out there, and been guilty of it myself, is think positive thoughts. Just think positive. Like that's super easy to do when you're unemployed and don't know how you're going to pay your mortgage, right? Instead, we're going to frame this mental piece as managing your cognitive load and identity separation. So stay with me. Those are some big terms. High achievers often merge who I am with what I do. I am so guilty of this. Um, and then when what I do pauses, so okay, who I am is what I do. And now what I do isn't there anymore. Who I am can collapse. And I have experienced at least once in my life a pretty uh, significant collapse of my identity as to who I am because that job, um, while it was actually there in the moment, I was not doing well in it because of things that were going on outside my life. And the threads that were holding me together were kind of relying on my work performance. And when I kind of got slapped in the face with the fact that I wasn't holding it together as well as I thought I was at work, whew, the who I am piece was really difficult. So here's a strategy. I want you to come to create a specific persona for the job search version of you. So you can call it, and I recommend calling it consultant and your name. So I would be consultant Lisa. This would be my job search persona. And your job as a consultant, you are being consulted on to find the next job, to find your next job. And when you close your laptop at 5 or whatever your job search structure in is, and PS, and by the way, that's one of the things that I work with clients on is creating that daily and weekly structure. You are literally clocking out of that persona. You are not unemployed. So from let's say 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. the next morning, you are not an unemployed person. You are between contracts, right? That's your job. And I think this is very helpful also when we talk about some of the physical pieces and the stress pieces, because I find people when they don't have structure around their job search, they don't give themselves any personal time. It feels like I should just keep going. I don't have a job yet. I shouldn't stop at 5. I should stop just in time to go to bed. I should get up first thing in the morning. And that is a recipe for burnout. And that is also a recipe for losing your self-esteem, and stress, a lot of things. Another issue that you may face in your job search is decision fatigue management. You are forced to make hundreds of micro decisions daily during your job search. So that could be everything from should I apply to this job? How should I fill out the application? How should I tailor my resume? Is this email going to be good? Should I connect with so and so? And that's going to drain your executive function that you need for things like networking, interviews, and other really important major decisions. So, a strategy is to have a no decision morning. So, if you can automate the first 90 minutes or so of your day with the same breakfast, the same, if you like to work out before work, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Same prioritized task list the night before. You want to have everything mapped out so that when you hit your computer at, say, 9 a.m., you haven't had to make hardly any decisions already. And so you can save that decision making energy, if you will, for the high leverage activities that you need to engage in with your job search. All right. So that takes care of the mental aspect, which I called cognitive budgeting, brain budgeting, and identity preservation, keeping you you. The next one is the physical aspect. And I called this one nervous system regulation. So the basic advice out there for this one is go to the gym and eat well. Done. Easy. Eat a bunch of spinach and go to the gym, right? No. Instead, we're going to frame this as managing cortisol and the flight or fight response. Fight or flight. High achievers run on adrenaline, correct? Am I wrong? In the job search, there's no release of that adrenaline. There's no release of the cortisol. If you think about it at work, you have this maybe stressful situation that builds adrenaline because you're launching a new project, you're closing a big deal, and then those things happen. And the cortisol levels can go down, the adrenaline can kind of regulate. But in your job search, there is no release like that, and the adrenaline turns into anxiety. So you want to complete the stress cycle. And here are some suggestions. Instead of sitting at your computer waiting for an email, like I really want to hear back from this person, or even a phone call that you're expected to get, when your body thinks it's being hunted, you're not moving, right? You're sitting. I want you to conduct a post rejection sprint. You get a rejection, you have a tough networking call, something doesn't, you get a rejection of some sort, email, the phone call you're waiting on doesn't happen. Don't just sit there. Don't mope and don't stew in it, but rather give yourself a physiological reset. 60 seconds of intense movement, like burpee sprints, rapid breathing, to signal your body that the threat has passed. So, whatever works for you and whatever you are physically capable of. Now, I can't do, well, I could probably try a burpee, but I might not survive. So, I'm not going to do burpees. I'm not going to sprint, but I could certainly do rapid breathing. I could certainly take a walk out my front door. Another strategy is voice anchoring. So I want you to think about this prior to, say, a Zoom interview. You want to introduce the door frame stretch. We all know how to do the stretch in the door, right? And low tonal humming. So 3 minutes before a call, you want to engage your vagus nerves and lower your vocal point. So low tonal humming, which I can't say, but I can do. What you want to do is bring that vocal pitch down, right? You're doing the door frame stretch to open up your body so you look like you're in control. You're doing the tonal humming to bring your vocal pitch down because that's going to signal authority. Another thing that I do when I have, let's say, a presentation, that I want to get myself ramped up. So it's not that I'm trying to reduce stress or nervousness, but I want to get myself pumped up for something. There's a particular song, it's Elton John, I'm Still Standing. I play it. I do the Superwoman pose, right? Hands on hips, legs spread apart. Might dance around a little bit, but that really gets me charged up and gets the blood flowing. So that section is the physical aspect, which is nervous system regulation. So doing things, don't worry about, go to the gym and eat well is great, but we're going to take that a step further. The next one is the social aspect. And I called this strategic vulnerability and boundary setting. So the basic advice here is network with everybody. And we often, us career coaches, we like to call that the spray and pray method, right? A spray and pray if you send out your resume to everybody who's breathing, but also spray and pray, no decision making, no discernment around who you network with. But I want you to engage in the deep dive approach, or what I call the bow and arrow approach, which protects your energy and leverages those connections, right? Weaker connections, but you're doing it strategically. The thing I want to say about friends and family that I have talked to many clients on consults about is friends and family mean well, but they're going to give you advice based on their worldview, based on what they would do if they were in your situation. And they mean well, but they don't have the skill set, unless they're certified coaches like me, they don't have the skill set to help you figure out what's best for you. And frankly, even if they were certified coaches, they may not be the best person to coach you in order for you to be able to really hear it because you're so close to them and your lives may be entangled. So here's a strategy. create a specific ask script that you can use to train your inner circle. So here's an example. Someone comes up and they start to talk to you about like your career. I appreciate your support. Right now, I don't need tactical advice. In other words, I don't need you to tell me how to job search. I don't need you to give me ideas of companies and all of that. What I really need from you is to just be my friend, be my sister, be my brother, be my mother, and talk about whatever's appropriate, football, the kids, the weather, wine, whatever, so I can remember I'm a human being, right? And so this really, if you take a step back, this starts with you recognizing what your needs are that have nothing to do with your job search, right? I realize that since I've been in my job search, I haven't engaged in my passion of. So let me get that in there. I haven't done enough of X. I've missed out on opportunities to do Y. And get some of that in with friends and family because frankly, they're not going to be helpful with your job search. Another issue that's faced by high achievers during a job search is that feeling of being needy. And this particularly shows up with networking. So I hear this a lot from clients. I feel it feels icky. It feels like all take and no give, whatever, however they express it. But I call it, an unequal exchange of energy or like being a barnacle in the job search process. If you've ever seen a boat that had barnacles on it, they just, attach themselves to the side of the boat. They cause all kinds of havoc for the boat and they provide no value to the boat. They're actually harmful. But what I want you to do, and I've talked about this numerous times on this podcast, is to have that equal exchange of energy where you give at least as much value as you get. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of how to do that because I have covered in lots of other episodes and will no doubt cover it again. But you want to turn that dynamic from one of feeling like you are a beggar, like you are needy, to one of trading equal value. So that's the social aspect, which I have titled Strategic Vulnerability and Boundary Setting, right? So it's okay to be vulnerable, but get what you need from people during this time rather than just taking whatever is offered to you. And to do that, you really want to ask in that in boundary. All right, the spiritual aspect is next. And I call this intuition as data. Advice here is have faith or everything happens for a reason, well-meaning, but like super not helpful. We're going to talk about alignment and intuition. So it's critical in this situation that you reframe your unemployment, not as lost time, not as this is a time out of work, every day counts, but as a strategic recalibration. So this is an opportunity for you to assess your career path, your trajectory. I always think about it as kind of making sure that your career ladder is leaning up against the right wall. It's great that you know that ladder that it's not going to break on you, that it's at the right angle, that it's sturdy enough to hold you, that it's not gonna slip on the bottom. Those are great and those are important. But if it's not leaning up against the right wall, then none of that matters, right? So we want to make sure that we don't just, as we have these breaks in our career, they're there for a reason. And we don't want to just continue on the same path without giving thought to that. And for some of you, that thought can be very quick because you love what you do. You think about, okay, I want to do this differently going forward in this, and that's it, right? Like I'm really happy. I always think about it, and I've used this analogy with my clients. It's like you're going on a trip when you leave one job and go to another and you've got a suitcase with you. What do you want to put in that suitcase and take with you to the next job, right? Because you love doing it. You want to make sure you do it in the next job. What do you want to leave on the shelf in the old office because you don't want to do it anymore? And then what about the things that maybe aren't in the old office that you want in the new office that you can put into your suitcase as well? I want to begin doing X, Y, and Z. So it's really a time for you to think about all of that. I thought this was interesting, and this is something I did not know. But it talked about, as I did my research, your gut feeling. We call it a gut feeling. It's actually our brains processing pattern recognition faster than our logic can articulate. So it's going on at such a fast speed. And that's why we're getting that gut feeling. And I always say my gut is never wrong. And then it really made sense with this notion that it is just our brains working so much faster than we can recognize or articulate. So, when you're engaging in job search activities, one of the things I often coach my clients about is pay attention to your energy. When you start looking, maybe I've got them researching a couple of career paths. Not only do I want you to find useful information to help you make that decision, but I want you to be the watcher of the process that you're going through as well. Are you energized by researching this career field? Are you energized by researching that particular company? Are you energized at the end of an interview for a particular job or not? Because that's going to really be informative for you. And this is really, how is your body physically responding? Is it expanding? You find yourself leaning in or relaxing? Or does your body contract? Do you feel your muscles tightening? Is your jaw clenching? And these are somatic reactions, and treat them as data, not just as fluff. So that's the spiritual aspect, which I'm calling intuition as data. So, in conclusion, you are the CEO of a company with one employee, you. And I want you to think about what a good CEO would do. He or she would ensure that the employee in question, again, that's you, is mentally sharp, physically regulated, socially supported, and spiritually aligned. So, my recommendation for those of you who are actively job searching, again, whether it's of your choosing or you find yourself out of work, choose one tactic from today, one idea, one suggestion. Go back and listen to this one again. I think that would be a good idea. Pick one out and implement it this week. Don't wait. Don't use Christmas as an excuse, or families in town, whatever it is. Go ahead and implement one, and then you might want to add them as you go along. And I would argue that there's some really good suggestions in here for those of you that are not looking for a new job at all. You can still find one that you can implement. I want to leave you with an affirmation. Your worth is not your work. Your value is inherent. The job is just the container where you pour that value out for a few years. So I hope that puts things into perspective. I will see you next week over on the exclusive career, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Take care.